welcome to Tech Talk Live. It is Tuesday, March 11th. We've got lots of tech today to talk about. It is 6 o'clock here in the it's 9 in the DMV. Sorry, I'm like thinking of you all of a sudden.
Okay.
Well, Sam, how's it going?
Well, yeah, 9 p.m. in the DMV, 6 p.m. in LA. I'm Sam Giaceno. Welcome to the show. Again, as Jack said, lots to talk about, including daylight savings. Maybe we should. I don't know what.
I know we're half asleep
into the technology behind that. Honestly,
the technology behind. Well, we here in the United States, we sprung forward, which means we lose an hour. So it would normally be.
I guess it's purely a U.S. phenomenon too, which just makes it even more.
I don't get it. Nobody really gets it. It's not falling back; it's springing forward.
Oh, I do have something to talk about though. So I was watching my iPhone home screen during when the clock jumped forward. So the digital clock in the upper left jumped forward, but the analog clock did not. So you may know the analog clock app icon is, shows the exact time, but it did not jump forward. But after you open and close the clock app, it did jump forward. So anyway, I just thought that was because you're always curious, like, does anyone even test this, $3 trillion company? Might as well have an engineer stay up and look at the behavior of your, clock app that's installed on, I don't know, millions of phones, but I don't know. That would cost too much.
Hey, I guess. Well, we've got to talk about Sam Altman, the founder of OpenAI, and his orb ball devices. You're calling it that, which I get it.
Well, we do have to talk about Sam Altman's big balls, right? So aside from the kind of lewd description, right, what is this? It's a biometric startup where the premise is you provide your biometric information to an orb-like device, which will essentially demonstrate your authenticity as a human to kind of an application ecosystem. Right.
Bypass CAPTCHAs as a use case sometimes.
Well, yeah. So no more passwords, no more sign in, none of that. You sign in with your, proof of human is what it's called, and essentially, I guess once you prove that you are a human anonymously, you have access to essentially a small app ecosystem called the World App Store. So kind of a kooky concept, but this is kind of like what we call a super app.
Let's do you have a screenshot of this so any viewers on YouTube can see what it is? It's a silver orb. Yeah, it's a silver orb. It's got a little black thing in the front. How else could I describe it? It's about maybe the size of a basketball. I've actually done this. So I did go to schedule, probably 2 years ago. I scanned. I got my
well, you got your you got your face scanned, right?
I did do it. I did. Well, it's an iris. It basically says I'm a unique human. I got my passport, my authenticator. There we go. We'll show that on the screen there.
So yeah, this is kind of what we're talking about. So this is the device itself, more or less, that you stare into. It's kind of a very, I guess it's a personable looking device. Essentially a lot of biometric hardware to capture your facial features or optical. I guess it's an inclusive, secure, anonymous proof of human device. So
anybody can sign
that,
up and register themselves. You have to make an appointment at a you have to make an appointment at a location near you. It's free. You get scanned, and then you're eligible for the ecosystem. So it's a unique concept. But yeah, to prove you are human, you can scan your iris with the orb, the balls, these large devices.
these
So
large or ovular objects, yes.
yes,
But it's
and
again,
yeah,
it's a key concept, but we'll see how it goes. I don't know. I think people
it's
are, it's going to be a tough sell, at least.
it's also worth noting that in the beginning, it was not available to, or the coin was not available to U.S. users. So any U.S. users who would get their iris scanned were not able to get the drop, the airdrop of tokens. And so there was definitely a little bit of like where you couldn't be in the US. And honestly, they've changed a lot of it from when I did it. In the past, the app was like a passport, and now the app is more like an app store of apps that you can connect your account to. And I think it is cool. I thought that the ecosystem was going to be supported the protocol a little bit more to bypass, like if you have Worldcoin on your phone, you know, somehow another company, let's say you're signing into Discord, you wouldn't need to prove you're a human, because there are a lot of bots and AI scrapers, and there's a lot of automated systems on the internet that that are, again, like Google, it's crawling the internet and scanning websites, but a lot of the internet is automated. And so when you're a human user logging in, we've all seen those annoying little CAPTCHA games that you have to play, pick the bus, pick the crosswalk. And that's just annoying. I think we should move on to another system. And obviously this is not a case for the physical authenticator devices like the YubiKeys, those types of devices. Even though, yes, they're physical authenticators, you're not going to want to tap that every time, so there needs to be a better way.
You have to have it with you in order to use it.
But there needs to be a better way than having this device to authenticate but that's only to sign you in. So it is interesting. The orb ecosystem potentially could be a solution to this in the future. So interesting. Should we talk about industry?
Well, so yeah, it's a kind of a clever play on words in that way, but AI industry, AI. I don't even know how to say it. Industry.
AI industry, yeah, or industry. Okay,
but,
so
yeah, we have to talk about so our friendly Google co-founder Larry Page. Essentially, so you were sharing this with me earlier, but essentially AI design in product manufacturing seems to be the one-liner.
Yeah. Well, exactly. So it seems like, again, if anyone's familiar with 3D printing software and stuff like that, we've had Autodesk, Inventor, and similar applications. Very manual processes that you have to go and design things. And so I feel like this is the next version of potentially manufacturing in the sense of, there is a gap. I mean, I had a 3D printer actually for a long time, and it was the worst mistake of my life because it was so much harder to design things and actually make them than you thought. And so I thought, oh, if something breaks, I'll just learn how to make it, or I'll take a scan of it, or I'll look it up online. There might be a file I can download. And I thought it was this really futuristic way to, to have physical objects made that could act as semi replacements for the original. But anyway, I think it just goes to show that 3D printers are very innovative technology, but it's not something that is how do I say it? It's not easy, and it's something that could be in every home, but it's going to be a while until you can scan something with your iPhone, refine it with AI, and then it converts it to a printable file that then prints it with the material that you have in the printer. There's just a lot of moving parts. And so I think, Larry Page seems to be involved with another startup. Obviously, Larry Page is the Google co-founder, but who's AI manufacturing startup. But actually, his company, Sam, it's called Dynomatics. So that's what we really should be talking about. AI as an industry, AI industrial applications is the overall, but Dynomatics is the company. And so finding out what they're doing, it's there's not really clear on publicly, like they don't show on their website all this things that they're doing, but I do think that it seems like they're aiming to use large language models in the design process, so you can design objects that then are going to be manufactured using refined large language models, and again, thinking of it kind of like Autodesk for the AI age. So
yeah, I'm trying to find a little bit more, like some more information on this. I mean, it's a relatively secretive startup, it seems like. I mean, other than AI, disrupting manufacturing, there's really not a ton of information about how, which is AI in manufacturing. There's no there's really no further information. I guess it's like, I guess large language models will create optimized design. So I don't know if this is from a physics standpoint, you in product design, you're able to kind of find the sweet spot between the amount of material used and the strength of the object. I mean, that's a large kind of area of manufacturing where, you want the least amount of material possible, but the strongest object you can make. So I don't know if it's something along those lines. I don't, it's very vague. But it's really hard to tell without any more info. I mean, honestly, like we've talked about it probably longer than the article would have taken to read, but it's mostly speculation.
It is mostly speculation.
I mean, I'm just trying to find something about it that's not the same 3 words, but their website says we're working on something new.
Yeah. Well, that's why there's not much publicly available on their site. I think the big thing here is it's Larry Page, the co-founder of Google. I mean, and that's a huge name.
Well, that's why people get, that's why they get,
And that's it. It's like, okay, great. Artificial intelligence to improve product manufacturing, highly optimized systems that can design physical objects and then be built in factories. And so, very fascinating here to think about what could be done with that. Obviously, we haven't seen any demos or anything. And I know we're talking about on the show, I guess a little sneak preview. We're talking about doing a robot roundup in the coming weeks. And for anyone who is not aware, Figure AI is a company now actually doing really cool things in robotics, where this is not a concept. This is a real thing. They have the Helix robots. This company I'm actually surprised their valuation is only 2.6 billion. I don't know how recent that is. It doesn't. I think it says. I think this was last year, but yeah, they have. But seriously, they have robots. I mean, look, valuations always come and go, and it's a private company, But I think at the end of the day, that it's a humanoid robot. They're very big on social media about use cases in BMW factories, use cases in your home, putting away groceries, figuring out what are cold objects that need to be in the refrigerator, what are not refrigerated, it can be out, and again, it's the first time these things are learning, apparently. And so again, like, that's a company where, again, we'll have in a future episode specifically talking about robots and rounding up lots of companies and what they're doing in AI and robotics, etc. But I think right now Larry Page is involved with Dynomatics. Don't really know what it is, but it's worth keeping an eye on simply because of that name. And maybe,
well, talking about Figure, so February 14th, according to TechCrunch, Figure AI is in talks to raise funding at a $39.5 billion valuation. So that is 15 times its $2.6 billion valuation for its 675 million Series B. So I guess we're doing a CMC. We're multiplying it, by 15x, and yeah, I guess people are really kind of betting on. It's a little creepy. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, it's just the robot. It's seeing AI come to life, I think, is like a good way to put it. And I guess, we've got, like, self-driving cars. I think people are familiar with Waymo and even Tesla. And that's cool technology, but a lot of that is, it's trained on roads. But what's interesting about these sorts of robots is they're not necessarily trained to go in your kitchen and cook something, but maybe it can figure it out, potentially, when you give it the body to do so, and it knows how to pick up items, and it knows how to do what it needs to do with them. So that's kind of the scary part about this.
A little bit, replacing the human was kind of maybe always the goal. Not to be fatalistic, or perhaps, but it's, they're literally, one of the use cases is, using it in a BMW factory, washing dishes, packing packages.
I mean, and sadly, these are all lower labor sorts of jobs that could be replaced or automated with robots. And I think it's like, this is the fear most people have. This is the fear most people, when they talk about AI, they think, oh, what's going to happen with my job? If you work at a factory, they could, and they're already using robots, to move things and stuff in factories. But now it's like, what if the robot can start doing your job too? So Figure.ai, very interesting company, worth talking about.
Well, yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on this, and honestly, I mean, we'll be here covering the tech, even if the tech will cover us one day. But
yeah,
a little creepy. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. Almost a little somber. They basically just, I don't know. It's just, the whole move fast and break things. And of course, they sell it. It's like today we're seeing unprecedented labor shortages, right? It's, depending on the narrative you read, I guess there's a labor shortage. There are 10 million unsafe or undesirable jobs.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, people need to work to eat. I don't know if that means a job is undesirable. I don't, that's again very subjective. So,
yeah. Well, interesting to see what's going on with that. We also have some other news that we think is worth exploring around data rights. So I think the big issue is we have a company that the information covered today. So this week, huge news. Of course, we're always talking about privacy, but it's very fascinating. Fiserv is a 41-year-old company that has started training AI chatbots on its decades of customer data. And that could be data that is private, that was never intended to be used for training AI. And so this is kind of the concern when they provide software for thousands of financial firms. And so obviously in the banking industry, that's a huge use case for, AI to help aid that process. But this company has really broken the norm when it comes to, I mean, there's nobody policing this. I'm sorry, like there's really nobody policing. Is it okay for a company like this to take decades of their customer data and then now they've got AI based on historical customer data? Like that does not sound good.
well, and you bring up a good point. A lot of the stuff is just, it's a matter of, it's catch me if you can.
Yeah.
This is, you know, there's a small graphic in the corner.
Yeah, that's
Fiserv.
the name of the company.
Oh, okay.
That's the name of the company. Just so everyone can see it.
It looks like somebody just rolled their face on a keyboard. Oh, God. I hate all these stupid names. They're just like financial services technology.
Yeah, Fiserv.
They're not finance, are they? Are they financial services technology?
They're a financial services technology company, yeah. But nobody's holding them accountable and saying this is not acceptable. I mean, using decades of your private customer data to then train models on historical activities. Yeah, sure they have data. That doesn't mean they should, like I don't know. I guess it just shows how powerful your data is and how we should have a right to our data. And it's really never been more important.
Well, and I mean, you bring up a good point, but at the same time, it's like court cases take years and AI startups take, days or weeks. I mean, it's just, and I think fundamentally, this has kind of been the issue with the existing, framework that we have. And kind of the day to day. I mean, it's hard to keep pace with this. I mean, the system itself needs an overhaul. If we're to litigate, a tech, a technology, if we are to, figure out what to do with this technology, we need to iterate faster than once every 2 years.
Yeah.
That's just how it is.
Yeah. No. 100%. And sadly, it's probably not going to come to that. Sadly, it's going to take them too long, and by the time they've already gotten their valuation, they've already used the data that they were not allowed. I mean, just nobody's holding. I mean, I guess it just goes to show we know Meta's also been doing this with your Instagram and Facebook content. It's just so sad that it's come to this, Seriously, it's really sad that it's come to this. And yeah, companies now just walking all over your private data, like you don't matter one bit, and it's like
well,
those
there's
photos.
no, there's no, there's no more privacy anymore. I mean, you have to take some steps to ensure it. But even then, it's like, like I have to use Chrome to do this podcast because the platform we use does not support, WebKit based browsers. I'm trying out Orion as a browser.
Kagi one, yeah.
From Kagi.
But that's still based on Safari's framework, so it's
WebKit's open source, I guess. I believe, if I'm
but still more web apps support Chromium, so you're kind of stuck needing a lot of needing to use Chrome. But Chrome sells your data. Is that why you're bringing that up?
Oh, well, absolutely. I mean, that's Google's, this is Google's collection. It's what they use to, to collect your data. I mean, that's just kind of how, I mean, think about it. You're the largest search provider on the internet. Just, I mean, why not have a web browser? I mean, it's
to
just
get more data from your users. Well, the real reason is to get more data from your users.
Well, yeah, no, exactly. I mean, because you sign into Chrome, you link your account with your browsing activity, your search history, your cookies, all that. So it's it is very much by design, I would say. But
yeah,
it's
well, no,
we've talked about this extensively before. I mean, it's honestly, if you really care about your data, and you should, consider switching. I know it's it's something where yes, it's going to require you to put in a little logistical effort, right? But I've ported over my passwords and my browsing history and my bookmarks. I mean, they make tools for it, but it's like it does require a little bit of effort, but it's worth it to protect your security.
Yeah. Well, and so using a privacy-focused browser, I know Brave is also one. I know, of course, Orion is much smaller. Firefox, also people are not that happy with these days, I believe. Do you know what happened with them?
No, so that's and this is quite interesting. I actually do have a few so yeah, essentially Firefox made a change to their privacy policy. Specifically, one which promised to never track or otherwise, provide your data for any monetary benefit whatsoever. Given their privacy focused sort of their mantra. And the way I guess the new regulation in California, more or less, I don't know if it required companies to clearly define such, but Firefox does share some anonymized data. So they essentially removed that component of their user agreement. Now, the fact that they removed it, sounds much worse than perhaps what they were actually attempting to do, because now it's like, well, they removed the whole section on selling your data as opposed to clarifying it or otherwise changing it. But nonetheless, I mean, it's like it's not in there anymore, so there's really even no promise that's going to happen. And the ironic part is that was the language included inside that section of the agreement. Is like, this is a promise. We will not, we're not going to sell your data. Well, just kidding. Yeah, like, just kidding. Too bad. I mean, that so that it felt like a slap in the face.
Yeah.
In that aspect. So I mean, it was, I don't know. It was kind of one of those things where,
yeah,
is it justified? Maybe, maybe not. But honestly, I'm kind of more of the better safe than sorry. So at least for me, like again, like I have Coggy. Orion, seems to be like a WebKit based browser. No ad.
These are good options. Yeah.
It has a fair bit of built-in features, and it's more or less kind of the
It's a good
same.
alternative, but it's still new. And honestly, there's not really I don't see many downsides. It's just what you get used to. Really. I mean, if you're used to using Chrome, I mean, that just means your brain is wired to use that browser. That doesn't make it better. It doesn't mean there's not other options. Do you know what I mean? So I kind of think do you agree with me?
Well, it's
It's just
absolutely.
retraining. People need to just get used to hey, there's other options, like that
Well,
sort
yeah,
of thing.
and I would be lying to say like there are a few growing pains. Like sometimes things won't work exactly the way you want them to, and for that reason, it's like yes, like I still have Chrome, and I'm not
Yeah.
signed into it. Again, I'm using this specific platform on Chrome just because it's all that it supports. I mean, the sad reality is that some website developers, it's like you can't develop for every platform. So, Firefox wasn't
Yeah.
going to work. Or, I mean, the good news with Orion and Safari is that it's probably the second most popular web browser at this point. So it does get you kind of have to balance like the popularity of a web browser with how much development attention it gets. So that's why
Mhm.
for a lot of websites, it's like, they're tested and they work in Chrome because that's what 60% of the internet uses at this point, maybe more.
Mhm.
So that's kind of where it's like, so yeah, some things won't work, and that's okay. Keep Chrome installed and updated, but otherwise don't use it if you don't have to. Go to your website with your, privacy focused browser first. And then if it doesn't work, then go in Chrome, to kind of,
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I think it's just rewiring people's attention. So yeah, try people should be more focused on this. Privacy is important. You don't want your data being used against you, even though it's not like I mean, nobody's saying you don't have anything to hide. I mean, we know you don't have something to hide, okay? It's not about hiding things. It's about your one part enabling these large companies to be sneaky and sort of borderline unethical. But the sad reality is, our politicians will probably never be able to stop this. And if they are, it'll be like 20 years from now. And, there will be implications so great because of, do you know what I mean? It's just, I think it's going to be a problem for a long time, and it's really on the user who cares about their privacy to say, you know what, I'm gonna not use this. I'm gonna pick a different browser. And also, there seems to be a trend of paying for privacy. Have you noticed this? Whether it's these services like Incogni, Cloaked, or whether it's paid. I'm not saying anything bad about Coggy. I love Coggy, but or if it's paid
no, I mean,
search engines like
that's very fair. I mean, and that's, I think that's kind of the reality of the model, right? So when you are the product, Google makes money off your data. So it's like if they're actually, I mean, I would say, this is a green flag because, if they're not making money off of your data, they need to make money somewhere. And usually, yes, that comes in the form of a subscription. But if you can stomach the cost and realize that, they're making it up otherwise,
yeah,
just not taking it out of your wallet directly, like at least be upfront with it. They're gonna BS you anyway if you don't pay for it. This is sort of like,
yeah,
here's the, you know here's the price of the service up front. You can pay for it, and essentially preserve your data. Which more or less is is worth it to you, I guess. Again, like Coggy Ultimate is $270 a year. Like that's a lot of money, but
Yeah.
the way I see it is that it's less than $1 a day to, and it's kind of like the keys to the internet. I mean, it's a modern search engine. Like, yes, like it's a lot of money, and it's a privilege to be able to even, be able to, use a service like that. But at the same time, it's like, I don't want Google to know what, I don't want them to make, yes, you get a free Google service, but it's just sort of like between all the features and functionality and, guarantee of privacy.
You're the product. Yeah, you're the product. You're going to see ads.
I don't want to be advertised to like that. I mean, it's just sort of like
your attention is being monetized.
Well, yeah, and it's just the overall quality of the product it just sucks. Like, Google's generative AI is just garbage. It's like it gives you things you're not looking for. It's not giving you a good search product. So in a way, it's like I would consider like half of my money is just, paying for a good search engine that's not filled with sponsored garbage and search engine optimization bull crap and all this. It's Google's been so gamed and so kind of played around by all sorts of advertisers and people paying for this and that. It's like it doesn't give you what you need, and you physically spend more time using it. That's the point of Google is to show you ads. It's not to find you what you're looking for quickly, because then you wouldn't see any ads. I mean,
exactly.
That's why Google has gotten so garbage over the past few years, because it's like it's better to just keep you digging around. And that's, I mean, and it's sad, but that's just kind of how the attention economy these days works.
Yeah.
No,
absolutely.
It's just
absolutely.
How it is. I don't know. It's tough to say, but it's just sort of like, yes, they are intentionally sabotaging their product.
And then also, the sad thing too, I mean, data brokers are always going to have your data, but delete me. I don't know if it's just me. Have you seen a lot of sponsored videos? I mean, I watch a lot of YouTube. I think there's a lot of good resources. It's a great place to get your news. It can be, depending on what you're listening to. We put this is on YouTube. But Incogni sponsors a lot of videos these days, and it's like the demand. I mean, people.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm saying, the demand for these sort of data removal services is great, but like if you put out less data that needs to be removed, the better. If you can protect yourself in the first place, it's like, okay, great. Use Incogni to tackle all what happened in the past. That's already out there in databases, fine. But then going forward, learn the good practices. Learn how to use a privacy-focused browser or privacy-focused search engine that might be paid. Even DuckDuckGo is probably better than Google if even though it might not be as good as Coggy's experience. But yeah, adopt these good password managers. That way you can manage your passwords. That each account has a different password, so you don't leave your accounts vulnerable to attacks. And then use security keys whenever possible, and try not to use the same email on every account, which is, I know that's a hard one, because I know I should be doing that to things, but I still go back to using my email, even though the more you use your email, the more you allow that as an identifier to you, versus you have a unique email for each. It just limits tracking, which again protects your privacy, and it doesn't allow, it helps so that companies can't, harvest your data and then advertise to you or whatever. So I think people need to protect themselves, but the demand seems like it's there because Incogni seems like a really popular tool. Poked, there's Delete Me, there's a lot of them.
Well, and I agree with what you're saying. The marketing budget has certainly kind of taken off for those, especially with Incogni. I've heard a few YouTube ads about Incogni in particular. But I would say, you know, I think you're right in that I mean, there is a lot of there, and to kind of balance what I was saying before, it's like I think you absolutely still need to evaluate a paid, privacy related product, because yeah, essentially what's happening is they're selling they're selling a service based on the fear of the fear of
To be
honestly, it's like that's just like any other fear motivated just like any other fear motivated thing. um you just have to be
well, but you
cognizant
don't want
and
them.
do your research.
Yeah, well, you don't want them to be incentivized to monetize your data. That's the thing. You don't want to give them reasons to, where if they don't have data in the first place, that because you're taking steps to protect yourself, like unique emails, requesting your data. Um, yeah, it's hard. I think, I mean, I know I have a very futuristic view of this, but I really think blockchain and wallet addresses on blockchains for services, I think is probably the only is a good solution for this. Because if you think about it, pretend for a minute that every service supported blockchain. You would have a wallet which stored your data. And that wallet address would connect to the service, but the service doesn't own your wallet address. You do. And so I think in the future, maybe the script could be flipped. Maybe the user could own their data, and then it connects to the platform, and then you allow permissions to the platform versus giving the platform your data and just kind of entrusting them that they're never going to sell it or do anything with it or whatever. So, but I don't think a lot of people don't understand, why blockchains could be a solution to a lot of, I think, problems that we have around data privacy. And yeah, like, I think there's more than you think when it comes to ownership of our digital information that people really aren't thinking about these days.
um yeah, I mean, I guess the whole blockchain thing, I mean, it's definitely a consumer adoption. uh it's a
And it's
consumer
going to be a
adoption
lot.
thing. It's something where we have to figure out like what, again, as you said, like what's the use case there. um
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Well, I
mean,
mean, a
is
lot of
like
people
is there a use case? I mean, is there something that
look, I see more people joining Telegram. I see more people joining Signal. I mean, look, correct me if I'm wrong, but what is the motivation to joining those services? Is it because there are groups that you're on these services? Or is it protecting your privacy? A little bit of both?
well, it's, I mean,
Like,
a lot of it's the privacy.
yeah,
People appreciate the encryption standards and in methodology they use to secure their apps.
yeah. Well, did you hear about the UK? I don't think we talked about it on the show, but did you hear about the UK and
The encryption
just
backdoor law, I guess they're trying to
yeah,
cram in there.
yes,
I
yes.
did. I don't necessarily know kind of
It's
how.
a it's around advanced data protection, where they want to basically make it so that that is not possible for users in the UK. because they recognize that Apple's basically giving users the key, giving users the information, and then they're basically telling the government, well, don't come to us because we don't have it. That user has it protected their themselves. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, I mean, so basically just advanced data protection being the iCloud feature for encrypting your backups and other Apple related information. It's again like it's making the surveillance state's job. It's making it more difficult. So it's, I mean, it makes a lot of sense why they're not too happy about it. And I think maybe you should use it.
Well, I think it's good. Yeah, I've turned it on. I mean, I think why not, right? Like, especially if you have a YubiKey security, key fob. Like, yeah, I mean, you just have to recognize that you take on the responsibility of the encryption as the end user. So Apple can't recover your account. There's zero recovery if you screw up. Are you familiar with that part of it?
Not in particular.
Yeah, so iCloud encrypts your data to keep it secure. Advanced data protection uses end-to-end encryption to ensure that iCloud data types listed here can only be decrypted on your trusted devices. So it takes, your notes and your messages, your bookmarks, reminders, photos, wallet, voice notes, and some sensitive data such as your saved passwords, data from health and maps are already protected using end-to-end encryption. So it's basically allowing you to use end-to-end encryption, which, look, I'm not saying everybody's going to be an expert in end-to-end encryption, but it means more privacy, more protection, more like safety. It's like you should use this if you use your phone and rely on your phone for your life, Like there's zero reason to not enable advanced data protection.
Yeah, I mean, I would recommend it if you have an Apple device. There are a few quality of life things I think you may lose. Definitely do more research. I'm not entirely familiar with it. I guess maybe I should turn it on. It's I mean, I feel like the thing is, like, honestly, it just makes it a little bit harder, but might as well,
Yeah, well, it's not that hard to enable, but you do need to make sure that you protect yourself and are aware of now the fact that Apple can't help recover your data should you forget your key or your recovery codes. So just be careful when enabling, that the implications there, because you don't want to lose all your data because you were sloppy when you enabled it. So, but privacy is important.
Yeah, I don't know.
So Anthropic's 3.7 Sonnet, its reasoning model seems to be getting really good feedback, even though it's just a little bit a step ahead. It seems to be well received now that it's been out for almost 2 weeks. Seems to be doing really great things.
That's something something I saw in Cursor AI. Have to give it a tweak, or try and see how it works more. Nonetheless, but I guess there's an agent component with the 3.7 reasoning subcomponent. So, you know.
Mm-hmm. So this agent you're talking about with the 3.7? I thought, yeah, cursor.
Yeah,
What are
no.
we? What
So
are we?
Claude Sonnet 3.7, the agentic kind of thinking. Well, it's the reasoning model is part of the cursor agent, which more or less supposedly is doing able to build your code, check the error, fix the error, rebuild the code. So basically adding agentic action to the cursor IDE. So the AI enabled IDE now has a little bit more function than it has before.
Okay.
Basically.
In terms of interpreting your prompt and getting
Well,
a
I mean,
final
also
result.
in operating as an agent, right? So an agent can kind of, again, like build your code, read a build error, and then correct the error. So it's a little bit more intelligent in how it can act, right? It's not just something where you ask it this, and then you build it, paste the error in, ask it again. It's very much, it's a little bit more autonomous in that way.
So are you familiar with when someone builds apps on Cursor, how they connect it to a backend or how they make a backend out of it?
Well, so a lot of that, and this is, I mean, something we can also talk about further another day, but a lot of it is, so at least with modern development, you'll have what's called a CI/CD pipeline. So basically, when you change your code, you're constantly integrating and you're constantly deploying. So that's what CI/CD stands for. And essentially, what that means is as you're writing code, you will, as soon as you write it, you'll essentially put it in your pipeline. You'll run usually a series of automated tests to kind of spot check the code, and then more or less, deploy. Have a deployment plan for said code, so you're able to update. Essentially update your deployment on the fly. And so that's kind of where, I mean, like if you have a back end, it's usually it's orchestrated, or honestly, like, I mean, a lot of the stuff, with a containerized application, the whole concept of, the back end is kind of a very, it depends on how far you want to abstract your software, because you can have it running on, an AWS Elastic cluster, as a service, which essentially just runs your container and, essentially handles. I mean, you don't have to really care about the back end, more or less, because Amazon takes care of it. So it really depends on, kind of, how much do you want to get into it. I mean, if you're working for Amazon, and you're in the trenches, I mean, there's a whole science of databases and how, distributed databases work and all. So it's like you can be as back end as you want to be, or you can be, basically say, screw that, I'm going to pretend like the back end doesn't exist, and more or less automate a lot of that out. And
Yeah,
honestly,
for sure.
depending on how big your service is, you may not even need to really care about the back end, honestly.
Interesting. Yeah, so it sounds like, yeah, services like Cursor, Bolt, Lovable, and Replit. You like Replit, right? I know that you had an account there. So are you finding that useful? What are your thoughts on Cursor versus Replit?
I think Replit's fine. I mean, it kept getting caught in a bunch. It's kind of the AI. It basically wouldn't fix a certain problem. And after like 7 tries, we were still kind of in the same spot. So I kind of shelved it in a way. It's probably different now, and I may be able to give it a second try.
Interesting, yeah. I would love to see how it's evolved. You should do like a little report, like a little check-in occasionally, and describe your experience with how Replit has evolved over the months.
Yeah, I think I may approach it. I may approach it again, and we could have I mean, I know the last time we had kind of a state of AI code editors, it was pretty,
Yeah, there's a lot.
It's changed over the past week and month, and and beyond.
Yeah. No, it's really. I think you're going to be able to within a year. Probably be able to with how easy ChatGPT is. I think you're going to be able to do it like truly on the fly. You're going to be able to describe your app with voice, and it's going to in real time iterate and get back to you a perfect app. Like that's going to be pretty cool.
Well, that's the goal, right?
Yeah. And then all software developers are probably, if they're not using this tool, they're very close to being out of business, which is kind of sad. I mean, AI is great, but it really is putting them out of business. Don't you think?
Well, with everything, right? We'll have to see.
They're going to be out of job. I don't know. It's not looking good, though, but it seems like they're going to be out of a job. But it's likely. I don't see a path forward with this, personally. I mean, I think I don't know how to describe it. I think it's like you've got the developers that want to be the ones to build that tool, right? Because if you're the first one, you've got that like OpenAI advantage, right? It's just like we see OpenAI having such an advantage over Anthropic in a sense, and Gemini, right? Because they were the first ones. We've talked about this before. So imagine. Also, I don't know about you, but when you think about building a website, a lot of people think about like Squarespace, stuff like that. And hey, no problem. Go with Squarespace, right? I mean, hey, a site builder, it's easy to use. There's nothing wrong with that. But you see what I mean? Like if an AI company can become the Squarespace in terms of, you get what I'm saying, web development to AI, app making, I think they recognize that they'll be ahead. So it'll be interesting to see how Cursor continues to evolve. But yeah, lots of updates. We're here every Tuesday. Thanks for tuning into the podcast. And again, our website for staying up to date and joining our newsletter for Tech News Weekly delivered to your inbox. It is techtalklive.xyz.
Yes, visit our website, and we'll be back every Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern and 6 p.m. Pacific. Signing off until next week.
Until next week.